Hello, and welcome to my little slot on Dovetail's Steam summertime sale. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to be, but today I'm going to be driving on Tees Valley. The job we're doing is 6 Echo 10 Dovetail to Crocombe, and we should be driving empty steel wagons, which we are. So I'm just going to move the camera position up here out of the way, so it's easier to see. So when I press the camera key, it doesn't take me to the back of the train, it takes me to the front, and this is the reason because the train has already run round. So yeah, right, there we go. So we've got the green to go, so let's prepare, get all ready, get the AWS on, switch that off. Master key is over there. I do love this model. How's the horn working over there? Sounds alright. That's good. That's good. I am on the PS5 running this, so I hope you enjoy it. And yeah. So we've got to set everything up. We've got to forward. Take the brakes off. We should all be all ready to go. Yeah. We are hauling, what are we hauling? We're only 625 tonne, so yeah, let's just get going. Just increase it a little bit. There we go. I'll hammer it in a minute. Just a little bit to get her going. And then just nail it. Got to put my lights on as well. I actually have a list of what the head codes for these should be, for these discs. Not sure where I put them, to be honest, but I do have a list. I photocopied it from my Bartman 20 Class 20 model. It had that on an info sheet. So we're going to do the 18 miles now from Darlington to the Crocombe Steelworks and park up in the yard. So why the 20s? Because I just love them. Doesn't anyone love a 20? A chance to get the old choppers out and sort of give them a good drive. And I think this Tees Valley is one of the underutilised routes. The 20s were originally DLC for Tees Valley route, along with the Class 31s. but the 20s will sub in on most of the jobs that the 37s do. The steelworks and the cokes as well, the coke work, but also the 20s were primarily used in here for they came in as DLC with the PGA wagons, which carry limestone. Let's back up a bit here. So yeah, the only one I've not I think the 20s can do them are the cement trips, but I've not done them, I don't think. Well, I've not tried to do them. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. But yeah, I think this should be on sale. Not sure what the discount is, but if you don't have it for your TSW3, then I highly recommend that. And the DLC as well for the 31. The 31 and the 20 as well as DLC. What you actually get with the route is the 08, the Class 37 and the VR101, but you also get, obviously you've got like other routes like Great Western Express 1970s timetable, and that's the Diesel Legends pack, and the Northern Transpennine. Those shunters will also sub in, so you can use those as well. But yeah, it's a really nice piece of content. It's one of my go-to routes when I just want to give out some loco thrash, because you can do it with the locos on here, no problem. Also, a big thank you to Dovetail for allowing me to showcase the route in the Somerset as well today. So yeah, just say, if you don't have Tees Valley or the 31 or 20, then go get them, because they're really nice locos, and the route itself is really good. I love the route. I wish there was more DLC coming out for it, to be honest, but I think there's a lot of routes that I wish there was more DLC coming out for, to be honest. Never know, hopefully in time there may be some more locos that get released that can run on Tees Valley, but yeah. We're slowing down for the 30 mile an hour limit. Don't they look lovely? Gives it a 2. And the other decent thing with this as well, some of them have horns that don't work properly. So we're driving 2108 and 2104. Now I have a model one of these. I bought it second hand. It's a Barkman one, and it is really heavy for its size, but it's shaft driven by the looks of it, by a motor literally in the middle of the loco there, shaft driven on the front and rear bogies. We've got a 30 mile an hour limit coming up, which we're now in. So if you have Tees Valley, what is your favourite loco that you drive? Is it the 37, the 101, the 08? Do you like a bit of gronking with the 08? Slamming around in the 37, revving it with the 108? thrashing it with the chopper, or cruising along with the 31 in the vain hope that it will eventually stop at some point because of its tired, its tread brakes. Oh dear. I like the 31, and I think the least one on here I like, although I can drive it now, which is good, is the 101. I don't mind a bit of shunting with the 08, but I love the 31 and the 20 more than I love the 37. Yeah. Let's go. Right. Let's go. Keep an eye on the. Let's go down to the foot crossing here. Get a nice GoPro view. Right, we can thrash her out now. Doing my bit for the environment at a time of the year. Obviously, if we were loaded, we wouldn't be able to do that fast, to be honest. So obviously the decent thing with this as well is that you can actually drive obviously the limestone runs, the PGA hoppers. You can also do the Coke HEA wagons, and the ones that we're hauling are the BBA wagons. So yeah, the 20 is quite versatile in here. But yeah, it's a nice little short run. It's about, what, 40-minute run, I think, sometimes, varying traffic. We've yet to see any traffic at the moment. Well, I think we did see a 101 come in at Darlington. And this is a great route for using I think we're going to get a yellow on after this. Yeah, so we'll start to slow down, but I've got a feeling that it will go green. I think we got a 30, not 31, a 101 in front of us, but it could be a 31 because some of the services with the 31, with the 101s have a 31 on them. We've got a 50, then we had it's gone down now to 45 mile an hour limit, so yeah. You may see custom deliveries on here. These are available off the Creators Club. Deliveries made by the community, for the community. I think this should be Teesside. It's not Teesside Airport, is it? No, I think so. 30 mile an hour unit coming up. I don't think we're going to make. This is where route knowledge comes in on the train lot. There we go. Just made it. I thought the barriers are going to go up. Maybe there's another train coming. So yeah, route knowledge is exceptional on here. You need to know your speeds, otherwise you'd be like me. I know I think we're coming up to Middlesbrough, so that's usually 25 mile an hour through the station. That's not Middlesbrough. I think that's Eaglescliff. I thought after all these years using Train Sim World on a keyboard I'd be able to actually tell what keys do what. Nah. A couple decent things on here. Nope, the handbrake. I mean, even though basically the you got nothing there and there's no reason why to have the hot plate on, I just thought it was quite good that they've actually included that, and then there's a warning surface may be hot as well. So I thought that's quite cool. I think there's another one around here somewhere where you have to test the fire belt. Might be over there. I know there's a 50 mile an hour limit here. Boggy. And I think we slowed down to about, I think it's either 45 or 35. After the 55. Whether we get to see any more freight or not before we get down to Crocombe, I'm not sure. That flashing light there is one of the collectibles. remember what this junction's called, but it's great. And one of the things that I do love the trains in world is the rail join sounds. I just love them. I even love hearing it on the model railway as well, and in real life. There's a place in Poole at the station where I always go, because that's the noisiest for where the rail joins are. And ever since they built a block of flats opposite the station, the block of flats block the noise from leaving the area, so it kind of reverberates and echoes. It's quite good. The people in the flats can't hear nothing unless they got the windows open, because they got triple glazing. Okay, so I'm slightly speeding. Will be fun. So what locos do you like driving on Tees Valley? Or better still, what locos would you like to drive on Tees Valley? I'd love to do Drive 56. A lot of this is now no longer here. There's also a big road over the yard, what's left of it. Sometimes you'll see 37s or 20s up, running up in here, or 31s. Should we go past Thornaby? 37, 08 and a 101. Thornaby, old Thornaby turntable. I dropped the 37 in there. Drove it off the tracks. It's quite funny actually. All it said use derails. So there's the PGA hoppers here, and behind them are the PCA tanks. That's the HEA wagons with the 37 up there. Give it a good thrashing on the old chopper. 37's about to depart, look. Why is it named chopper? Because they sound like helicopter. Struggling to find that sound. Probably an aeroplane. 6 miles to go to Lackenby. So we're not doing the full route. We are going up to the bridge here. We'll pop it in there. Up here. I think the road's not set. So do this along here. Miles in it, so I'm just going to stick around 45 miles an hour. This is the bridge that goes up and down, makes a funny klaxon type noise. I think there's an awful amount of track around here that we don't get to use. This area here, a lot of all this here, some of this here, and we can't come in off this track either, which goes down to, I think it's Skinning Grove Works. You can only do that in the 20 in a scenario, but there's loads and loads of track, all this lot here that we can't use. All this here, there, most of this up here, Darlington Station down here, look, and there's all this, engineer sidings. It's just a shame that we can't use it, so yeah, it would have been nice to be able to use that. Right, we're approaching Middlesbrough, we've got a 25 mile an hour speed limit. Time to whack the brakes on, kill the throttle, and slow down to 25. It'd be nice if there's some like a new loco come out which could be used on the route, and then it kind of opens up the options to have a DLC like scenarios and more timetables where the line is open, the sidings are there, that you can actually use them. I think that'd be ideal. I'd love to do something like that. So like a new loco and a new wagon sort of thing, that'd be ideal. So we can get it coming past the station. I thought that was a red for us then. You know, train spot a lad. Me when I was about 13 or 14 at the end of the platform. Driver gives a bit of a toot. As the 20s just chirp their way through. That noise, apologies, that is just a notification on the Discord server, which even though my Discord server isn't on, the PC is, and for some strange reason the PC, well the Discord server isn't, Discord isn't made up, but notifications just come through the PC. It's it. It doesn't inconvenience too much. The reason why my Discord server's just gone nuts is basically because Dovetail's just released an update. So yes. Right. Well, we can still do up to about 600 yards. A little bit more. Turn the speaker down so no one can hear it. That'd be easier. Right, now I've got to slow down to 25. I'm not paying attention. This is where we get the point work to go into the sidings. We've got the signal. Most of this stuff isn't here anymore. It's a bit of a shame. Now, if I can do this, that should be quite cool. There we go. Just a bit. Now this is the This is a slog up the gradient, which I always find the slowest part when you leave here, especially when you're doing it and it rains. You're going up a 1 in 428. Sometimes if you are lucky enough, you will see the odd train driving through there, usually a 101 though. So with this, in theory, we can run all the way. Yeah, we can run all the way into the sidings where we need to go. It's just that one I always need to double check. Yes, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So now the main line is on our left hand side. Over here. Have any of you come down here full speed and derailed at the bottom down here? That'd be funny. What I've done, I've actually driven up this wrong line. Ooh. Let's go back here. Should pick up speed in a minute. And she will pick up speed. I've literally come up on this line here and I've had an earth fault and derailed, come off the end of the line. It's quite funny because I didn't realise I had done it, which is really stupid. I put myself through on the wrong set of points. So we're not far off the gate. And I think we might have to uncouple, and then we'll just run up to the head shunt up here. No you don't. Yeah, I think we'll run up to the head shunt. It'll just be up about here, I think it is. Nice lot of steel slabs on the old wagons there. What I have done, I've had a pair of 20s, no it was a 30, I think it was 37, sorry, and I grabbed, you know, usually you come out and you do one service with 37s on the steels, you usually pull the these, I'm pointing this with my finger, you usually do these steel rolls. Well, I reversed the train back and picked up a rated E's as well on one of the services. Yeah, needless to say, the 37 struggled a bit, and I still managed to complete the service though, to take it to E's still. Yeah, have you ever done that sort of thing? Have you ever like taken more of a load than you should have? I didn't think I was going on the right one, but I am. It's this one. It's this one here that I need to make sure, because it turns its way round. I love the way that this looks, you know, like it's just been well used. The other subtle things that I like in here as well in 20 is that basically you've got, you know, the little signage, high visibility clothing must be worn. The noise of the windows, the hot plate thing, yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a fire test that I don't know where it is. The other thing as well is that each loco will have a certain horn specifically assigned to it. So some horns sound the same, others they're different. Gently. That's what I'd love to. Coming up. Yeah, we've got to uncouple. Right, okay, so well before we do that, show you the horns. What I mean by the horns, basically, this is our front driving horn. This is the rear horn. So it's slightly different, and the other one you can do. Sometimes you can click it off to the side here. There you go. Which is the horn behind us. That horn. I don't know how they do it, but climb down to this one. use this. Where is it? This one. See, some of the horns are slightly different. The rear horn will be what's on here. So yeah, there's. I think he said there's about 4 or 5 different horns that you can use. Right. So one of the things that you can do on here is climb under. Where you should really have your hard hat on from your G6 for this. Take brake off, change to your loco brake. I know I'm going too fast. You got that flange noise as well. That's so great. There we go. And that's it. 3,335 and a gold, hopefully. Oh, we got a silver. Oh well, no worries. Right, well that was it. This is my little slot on Dovetail's summertime sale. I hope you have enjoyed it. I am Hentis Rail. You can follow me on the YouTube channel at Hentis Rail or on my Facebook page, Hentis Rail. And yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of the Steam sale, and I shall see you out there. Thank you all, and goodbye.
Hello everyone, how you doing? I'm TinTin57. Welcome to today's video showing off the Glasgow to Edinburgh route. DTG have kindly asked me to come on and showcase any route that I wanted to that was in the sale. And this is one of my favourite ones. I like running this one quite a lot. So we're going to get everything set up first. We're going to travel down from Glasgow down to Edinburgh in the 385, which of course comes with the route, and to open the doors I need to engage the master key. That will be a good thing. We'll set this up first and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. We'll put the TMS on last. Let's just check the headlights. The headlights are on full, which is good. The remote tail lights are on, excellent. Let's go over and have a look at the safety systems. We will cut that in, and that's cut all these in that need to cut in. Okay, that's excellent. Let's just cancel this alarm. So we're at Glasgow right now. And if we get the train management system on, we'll just have a quick look at this, because this is a new bit of functionality that came with this route. So you can see the first page you're greeted with is the train formation. So you can see we've got the doors open on the left hand side. Let's just confirm that. We need to log in first of all as a real driver would. Now it's any 4 digits. A real driver, of course, would, I assume, have his own code that he puts in that will identify him. So put the first 4 numbers in, just press enter, and then any other 4 of your choosing. If I can just get the cursor in the right place, and then log in. So what that's done is now it's telling us it's a 4-car set. This is 1 Romeo 48, 27th of June, 11:16 AM. And if we go to this one, not that one, I wanted to show you this one. This is the key. This is a key code for the doors. So this is telling you what the symbols mean on the doors, which is also quite handy. If we then go to this screen, here is where you turn on the lighting inside. Right now, the lighting is off. It is the morning, but if we just click on that and say OK, you can see now the lights will come on in the train. Got these nice little seat covers as well here in first class with the ScotRail livery. That's nice, isn't it? It is really well done on the inside and the outside. Let's have a look at the auto announce, which is really interesting. So we've got 3 different categories in here, and I'm not worrying about the time. I'm not worrying if we're going to be on time or not. I wanted to show you this. We've got safety and security, customer info, and operational info. So we have things like at the station, if we click on mind the gap.
Please mind the gap between the train and the platform as you leave the train.
So we can use any of these whilst we're sat waiting.
If you see something that doesn't look right, speak to staff or text the British Transport Police on 61.
That's pretty neat, isn't it?
We'll sort it. See it, say it, sort it.
If we go into customer info, there are all sorts of different things that we can announce to do with just general
Welcome
customer
to
info.
The ScotRail service to Edinburgh Waverley.
And this one, we'll just have a look at this one.
This train is for Edinburgh Waverley.
So you can set as well the period as well, so you can have it to say it once or continuous or repeat for a number of times. If we had it on repeat, it's set to 2 at the moment. We'll just have a quick look what is in operational info. So this is all the testing stuff. Let's click on the first class item.
First class accommodation is available on this train.
Okay, excellent. So we'll go to customer info for the journey. So as we're about to set off, we'll announce where the train is for, first of all.
This train is for Edinburgh Waverley.
Okay, excellent. So let's get the doors closed. And we can make our way onto Croy, which is our first station stop. And there's a horn for the 385. Glasgow Station, by the way, which is a lovely canopy, lovely glass canopy. And one thing I always show my viewers, if I can just catch it, my favourite asset, the Lake Kebab Shop at Glasgow. But let's get back to driving the train then. We're just going through the tunnel. Then we'll be up to speed. Now I do believe this is, I think in the summer sale, this is around 30% off. So this one is quite a good deal. And as you can see, well, as you will see, if you don't already own this one, this is quite a decent run as well. So the whole route is 47 miles, which is 77 kilometres end to end. Regular viewers of my channel will know where TSW is concerned. I always like a long run, so this provides that and gives you some decent speeds as well. The whole service itself is around 50 minutes. So it will take us slightly longer today because we've been having a look at the train management system there, which is one of the stars of this DLC. So this DLC, don't forget, was developed by Rivet Games, and I think it came out late January, as I recall. I'm playing on the PS5, just for your awareness, so you can have a look. Some more horn. I know that's important for many of you, and rightly so. Well, let's come up to speed. We're in a 60 at the moment, and that will be rising to 70 for this run to Croy. We're actually due there in, what, just over 4 minutes, but we will be delayed because we were looking round at Glasgow, but that's fine. The weather is set to June. It's a lovely day. We'll follow the 385 around this corner. Also need to watch the speed, of course. .2 miles to go. It's a very narrow view, isn't it, out of the 385. There's a few of these EMUs that have a very narrow window, and there's nothing to see on the right hand side as well, because these units, if you look at the front, these units are designed to be coupled up to similar units, so there's no opportunity for a window in the centre, so you've got the second man's window there, but essentially the driving is done through this little portal, but you know, it's decent enough. It's a decent enough view, and this is actually a really lovely route. Scenery wise, you start to leave the city of Glasgow behind you. You come out into the countryside, and then it starts to build up again as you approach Edinburgh. So we've got 385 there on its way into Glasgow. So this was the second ScotRail route we got as well, the first being Cathcart Circle, which again was some time ago now, but whereas Cathcart Circle is it's a very stop-start, isn't it, Cathcart Circle, as you would expect. With this one, as you can see, Croy was over 11 miles from Glasgow. There are long stretches across this whole 47 miles. Where we can really come up to speed. So this one's a little bit different, and the 385 is a very capable little EMU as well, quite nippy, and it's a pleasure to drive. Once again, it's got a combined throttle and brake lever, so it's fairly easy to do. Just keep an eye on that speed. So it's got mastery as well on this route. You will see that once we get down to Edinburgh, right next to Murrayfield Rugby Stadium, just outside Haymarket. You will see a big top tent with the Scottish flag on top. That is the mastery tile that you can unlock through this. So we'll have a look at that once we reach Haymarket. The 385 is also available in the livery designer as well, so if you want to take it out of its quite lovely ScotRail livery, you can do that if you so wish. And just checking before the video, there's quite a few liveries already on there, some clever liveries created by you guys on there. I've said it before, I am not artistic in any way, I'm terrible at liveries, but I enjoy playing with some of the liveries that you guys have put on there, and indeed some of the scenarios as well. Some of the scenarios are very, very clever. So you've got some flexibility there if you've got a favourite livery you want to see the 385 in. And we're rapidly approaching Croy. You're going to be slightly late. We've still got just under 4 miles to do, but it's fine. So, other things that this route includes, you may have noticed already, is the dynamic weather, which I have got set to on at the moment. I don't know whether it will change along the route, it could do. It's also got the volumetric skies and the catenary spikes on the overhead wires as well, which we've seen on other routes. You tend not to see those though until it's raining. I don't think we'll see them in this clear weather, but that is available. And there is one neat feature as well. Depending on the sunlight, you see these blinds. The blinds will raise and will drop automatically, depending on the lighting. So if we get to see that, just make a mental note of where they are just at the moment, just about level with the bottom of the one on the first class, aren't they? They do actually rise and fall themselves as if the passengers inside are doing that. That's quite neat, isn't it? That's very neat. So we have got just over a mile, so we will start to slow down, then we can make this approach into Croy. Just checking our schedule today, we've got Croy, then we've got Falkirk High, Polmont, Linlithgow, Haymarket and Edinburgh. So should be a good little run this. Mentioned earlier, this is the second route we've got in Scotland. I actually quite like the Scottish routes. I hope we get some more in the future. Dovetail and Rivet do have the official licence with ScotRail. So it's there to be for routes to be created. So I hope we do a few more. Okay, this is Croy. Welcome to Croy, everybody. A little overshoot there. Just slightly. Shall we actually just take that off? Let's go into reverse. Let's just reverse it back in, shall we? Let's do this properly. There we go. And we'll get the doors open. What I should have done actually is announced the station as we were coming in. So we will let everybody know where this train is for, first of all.
This train is for Edinburgh Waverley.
And what we'll do when we set off, we'll announce the next station. So let's do that. So it's Falkirk High in just under 10 miles. So we'll just leave Croy right now and then we will announce it.
The next station
That's pretty neat, isn't it? That really is neat. Now, I'm concentrating on the driving so much, I often forget to do that, but if you really want to immerse yourself, you can use this for all these various different announcements. And it's pretty neat. Now, I don't know if any other trains use that, but certainly I imagine it's not just confined to the 385. We may see it in future. So let's see what else we can do. What about your belongings? Please make sure your belongings are with you. That's another one we can do, isn't it?
Don't forget to take your belongings with you before you leave the train.
So the announcements are being made behind us. So as we're driving, you can't hear it as much in the driver's cab, but obviously when the engines are idle, when we're coasting, you'll hear it a bit louder. There is a volume button here, but I don't know what that does exactly. Doesn't appear to do much. We've got the brightness set in as well. We can increase the brightness by just moving this slider. Actually, that's like a contrast, isn't it? I don't like that. That's better. It's more definition like that. So we're bound for Falkirk High. I'm just looking at the Dovetail Live article, and this is what it says about Falkirk High. It says, as we reach the halfway point of this winding route, we arrive at Falkirk High Station. With its close proximity to Edinburgh and Glasgow, the town and station are popular with commuters and tourists alike. A modest and modern station building greets passengers upon arrival, with many of these passengers heading to some of Scotland's most iconic tourist attractions, which are situated in the town. The town is home to the famous Kelpies, two 30-metre high horsehead sculptures depicting Kelpies. These shining silver beauties draw people from afar. Falkirk is also known for the ingenious piece of maritime engineering known as the Falkirk Wheel. This frankly outlandish creation attracts transport and engineering fans keen to see a narrowboat flying through the air. I don't exactly know what that is, but I'm going to look that up after this video. It does sound a bit daft. A narrowboat flying through the air. Okay. So, the other thing to say about this, the 385, there's over 200 services for the 385. There is also some layering. You can use the 37 from West Cornwall. You can also use the Jubilee as well, if you've got Spirit of Steam. I think all the NTP BR Blue trains operate as well as rail tours. There's a couple of rail tours, so it comes with the 385, but there's plenty to do. If you also own the railhead treatment train, this is another route where the railhead treatment train will appear, and of course that's a standalone DLC. So that's nice that is appearing on more and more routes. So you should find you've got plenty to do on here, and I quite like this route at the full price. So if you're going to get this in a sale, I would say you've got a bit of a bargain with this one. See what you think. There's going to be plenty in the sale. If there's something you've been waiting for some time, I'm sure something that's on your list is going to appear there. So fill your boots, as they say, and whatever you do pick up, I hope you enjoy it. 3.5 miles to Falkirk High. We'll look for the narrowboat. We can see that from the station. I don't know if you can. It sounds ridiculous. Someone's winding me up. Someone's trolling me. Let's take a look outside as well. We'll try not to overshoot this time. We'll see if we can stop it on the money. Quite a fast route though, isn't it? Good distance, quite fast. .385's easy to drive. Not as easy to stop when you first stop, but as you play it, you get a little more used to it. What we should do, I'm just remembering now. Let's tell everybody that we're about to arrive, shall we?
We'll soon arrive at Falkirk High.
So we'll soon arrive at Falkirk High, and also if you are getting off,
Please mind the gap between train and platform as you leave the train.
there you go. Make sure you mind the gap. So I'm going to make sure this time I stop in plenty of time. As we're just over half a mile away from Falkirk High. We're actually only a couple of minutes late, so we have made up some time actually on the run. This is Falkirk High now, just coming into view. A much better stop this time. But saying that, I have a feeling the stop marker should be... are we actually in the platform? Let's have a quick look. We are in the platform. It's quite a long platform, isn't it? I imagine that the stop marker really should have been up here. The 6, 7 and 8 car stop is there. We're a 4 car, aren't we? I think we're a 4 car. So it's probably right. Is that the marker actually there? Indeed it is. So we went slightly past. But that's fine. It's a very, very long platform. Right, Polmont is next. Shall we announce that? We will say what train we are first, generally.
This is Falkirk High.
Oh, that's Falkirk High. This train is for...
This train is for Edinburgh Waverley.
And what's the next station?
Next station is Polmont.
Polmont. Excellent. There we go. So you see what I mean? That adds a lot more immersion to it. It's really good, that. And it's clever how it's implemented into the game as well. I think that system alone probably took up quite a bit of development time, didn't it? So, you know, Rivet have done a good job on that. Let's talk about the cab as well, just while we're here, because this is really well modelled. We've got, most of these buttons are clickable. All the lights are up here, the cab lights, etc. Down lighters. Door release buttons, if you are operating them from the cab, you can do that from this side, as well as doing it on the TMS system as well. We got things like the air conditioning controls up there, AWS acknowledge button, etc. and the horn is down here. Doors on this side as well. I don't think the GSMR is working on this one at all. Let's just check. I don't think it is it? Just talk about the previous and next destination there. I'm just wondering if I have to turn a fuse on anywhere for that. Not sure. Right, we've got a 90 coming up. And in fact, Polmont is about 900 yards away. So we'll get some of this speed off. So the braking is pretty good. You can get down from quite a high speed down to where you want to be quite well. So, for the benefit of the passengers,
This is Polmont.
Polmont, I was calling it Polmont, wasn't I? Polmont is the correct Scottish way to say it. The blinds are still in the same position at the moment, but I do want to try to catch those and let you see them if possible. Linlithgow is next. So I'm doing this with the thumbsticks on the PS5 controller. It will be easier if you're on a mouse.
Is Linlithgow. This train is for Edinburgh Waverley.
Excellent. Right, Linlithgow. And that is where the wipers are, by the way. Something we often don't look for, isn't it, on a route, and then suddenly we go into a scenario where it's pouring down and we're going around everywhere trying to find the wipers. That's where they are, right on the front desk, which is quite nice. Nice and easy to find. We've got 4 miles to Linlithgow. Hope everyone's enjoying the video. Just whilst we're making our way to Linlithgow, I'll put the details at the end of the video, but if you want to hop over to my channel, TinTin57, we've got lots of TSW on there going back to 2018, the very first TSW. And we've also got other simulation games on there, trucks, cars, planes, you name it. If you want to come and check me out, you'd be more than welcome. Due at Linlithgow in a couple of minutes' time. We'll just coast now for a little while. If you go onto Dovetail's website, by the way, there is an interview that was done with a real 385 driver on this route, which is quite interesting. A lot of detail about how this compares to real life driving in the 385. You might find that interesting. If you just have a look on Dovetail's YouTube for that. You can also find it via the Dovetail the Dovetail Live article which announced this route back in January. Nice, interesting video. It's always nice to know, isn't it, how the routes and the trains compare to those in real life. I know we've got a couple of ambassadors that are also train drivers. It's always interesting to hear from them. I don't believe we've got anybody that drives a 385 though. But as players, it's often difficult to know, isn't it, how near these things are to the real thing. So it's great to watch an interview such as the one I just mentioned, and the driver there confirming it. Okay, this is Linlithgow. What I'll do as well as we leave Linlithgow, I'll just quickly show you the route map because I realise I've not done that. So if you have a look at the route map, we're at Linlithgow. So we have got, it's quite a long, it is quite a windy route, isn't it, as well. Glasgow at one end, Edinburgh at the other. Down at Edinburgh we've got the depot, which we will see. Yeah, great route, 47 miles, 77 kilometres. Will keep you busy for a long time. Let us announce the train again as we set off. So this train is for...
This train is for Edinburgh Waverley.
Yeah, it's neat that. Haymarket is next. So we've got Haymarket and then Edinburgh. So on the way into Haymarket, as I said, you will be able to see the mastery tile, which I've got unlocked, so we'll take a look at that right next to the Murrayfield Stadium. Let's announce Haymarket, shall we?
The next station is Haymarket.
Yeah, and Haymarket is literally just outside Edinburgh. So we're due there in 12 minutes, well, 11 minutes and a few seconds. We can come up to 100 miles per hour, which we will do. We're in notch 4 now, which is the top throttle notch on the 385. So we'll take a look outside for a little bit, and we'll take a closer look, shall we? I'll just fly along with the thumbstick so you can have a good look at the 385 and the ScotRail livery. First class at the front. Second class towards the rear. Whoops, we got a photo bomb there by a bridge. Let's reset and then we can go along to the back of the train. Got a long straight section of track right now. I mentioned layers before as well. If you do have the Cathcart Circle already, then there are several services where you can use the stock, the 314 from Cathcart Circle on this route as well. So the services on here, by the way, for the 385 range from the full run, which is this that we're doing now, which is around, it's between 50 minutes and an hour depending on the stops, but there are also short services of 15 minutes to half an hour, just under half an hour as well. So You don't have to commit, if you've not got much time, you don't have to commit to a full run end to end. You can do some shorter services, so there's a very good mix there, depending on what you want to do. And like I was saying all the way through, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this one. Can't open the windows on this. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show you as well is if I go to the views, this is an interesting view. So this is like a platform view. There is a little CCTV camera at the front, which I will now show you. So this is something else that's been put in. That's why it's in black and white. If I go back into this view, and I quickly go up to the front of the train as we come through this cutting. We have got the, where is that camera? There it is. It's the driver's eye view. It's this camera. So that was the black and white sort of CCTV camera there that you just saw. That's that view, which is quite good. That's something new as well on this route, which the 385 has got. So we'll change that view. You can come into this view, of course, as well, and just look at the TMS. That's one of the internal views. You can also go to the safety systems and back to the driver's view as well. So if this is a little bit small for you, you can change the internal view, which will just show that panel, if that helps. So we've got an 80 coming up. But there seems to be a very big list in the sale right now at the moment, the summer sale. So I hope many of you have been saving up those Steam vouchers, because if you want to build up your collection, I think now is the time to do it. So we're just coasting now for a little while. We do have 100 coming back up. Let's take a look as we come across this very wonderful viaduct. Come up to speed again. See what I mean about the route? It's very scenic, isn't it? The Scottish countryside looks lovely. I think they've represented it very, very well. Seven miles into Haymarket, which will fly by. Let's just give another reminder to everybody so they can be picking up their bags if they're getting off.
We'll soon arrive at Haymarket.
And don't forget,
We'll soon arrive at Haymarket.
okay, I thought I'd clicked the on and off trains. We'll do that now.
Please take extra care when getting on and off train.
Yeah, very sensible. Take extra care. The route in general itself comes with the usual, I think it's 5 scenarios, some decent length scenarios as well, which you should also enjoy. Plenty to occupy you on this one. If you want to go back and have a look on my channel, just recently I did run the West Coast Railways Class 37 rail tour in the maroon livery, which I got from the Creators Club. I ran that end to end on this route. We did that in a live stream just recently. Go and check that out, then you can see some of the Creators Club stuff running on this route. Excellent in a 37. You could really give it some grunt down this route. So go and check that out. I think if you like your classic traction, your 37s, I think you'll enjoy that little run that we did. We're just 3.6 miles away from Haymarket, so you will start to see Murrayfield fairly soon. Let's just go above this catenary. So you can check out, you see as we approach Edinburgh, little by little, buildings start to go up. There's a tram, by the way. You see the tram? Those trams, I think there's over 200 AI services in the trams as well, in the tram, on the tram section. So you can't play those, but they are animated. So this is the tram line right around here. So you can spot those travelling past as you approach as well, which is quite nice of them to put in. Put a little bit of brake on and we'll start to come down to this 80. So if you look ahead, you can see Murrayfield. You see the top of the stands there, Murrayfield. And this here is the aforementioned mastery tile that you unlock once you get past the second level, the final level of mastery. So there's a big marquee tent there outside of Murrayfield, probably the beer tent or the whiskey tent in Scotland. So a little bit of over braking whilst we were looking at that, but there is Murrayfield. If rugby is your thing. So Haymarket is coming up. Let's go down to minimum brake and let's tell everybody once again in case they need to get off.
We'll soon arrive at Haymarket.
Now what would be nice would be if that system was automated in some way, so that as we approach the stations it would automatically announce them. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So we don't have to press the button, it will tell us we're about to come into Haymarket at various points, maybe a couple of times before we actually reach it. But the other thing, what do you know? We are pretty much on time into Haymarket after that delay up in Glasgow. We will have some wait time at Haymarket just while we unload and load passengers, but it's okay. So this is Haymarket. Let's just come into a nice gentle stop. Nice mix of the old and the new, isn't there, at some of these stations as well? You got the older buildings at this side, and yet look here, you got this concourse at Haymarket, and it doesn't look out of place. That I quite like it. There's the entrance to the station, the old original entrance. So just over a mile into Edinburgh, so it's not far at all. So we'll just put into notch 1 because we do drop down into Edinburgh as well. So we'll announce Edinburgh right away.
We'll soon arrive at Edinburgh Waverley.
Yep. And also
please mind the gap between the train and the platform as you leave the train.
yeah, we don't want any accidents now, do we, when we've run all this way? It's been a nice run again, so you know, thanks guys for watching this as part of the summer sale event. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. It's my honour to be able to come on to DTG's channel and show you this. And if it does help you buy the route or any of the other routes, drop a comment below. Always nice to get that feedback if it's helped, if it's given you a chance to have a look at something. That's what it's about. So it's a very slow approach into Waverley. Once we get out of this tunnel, we'll take a quick look. We should be able to see Edinburgh Castle, and the Balmoral Hotel is also modelled, which is quite famous. So here's the station, just coming into view. Just around this last curve, and we're there. So if I take you to the outside view, up there is Edinburgh Castle. As you can see, I don't know if you've visited that. Well worth a visit. If you haven't and you're in this neck of the woods, you have to go and see that. High on top of the rock there. Excellent position for a castle, isn't it? And there's our train just passing quietly underneath the castle. And this is Waverley Station now, coming in. So we're coming into platform 11A. If you listen carefully, you can hear the bagpipes. You hear that? That is a nice touch, isn't it? Everybody's waiting for us to come in. What we'll do when we stop the service, we'll briefly jump out. We'll have a very quick look at Edinburgh station whilst we're here, because again, that's also quite impressive. Let's get the doors open and we'll have a look at everybody getting off. Again, the station canopy is really impressive, and that is 370,000 square feet of glass. That's a lot of glass, isn't it? That is a lot of glass. But if we just hop back to free roam, look how light and airy this is. It's great, isn't it? What we'll do is we'll leave the train as it is for now, and if I open the door, we'll just hop out. We'll have a very quick look around Edinburgh Waverley, and I think even this is new. We can go up the lift to the top. Let's do that. Just these little things coming into these DLCs, isn't there, that are different? So you see now we've gone up above, which is quite nice. We can look down on the station, the old ramp there coming down. We go down the escalators. Stew's Brew is even here. So there's plenty to see. And then just as a final thing, one other thing they've put in. Notice, by the way, Hammer Yar, the very subtle anagram of the real thing. You can play a song. So there you go. We can leave that playing as we walk around Edinburgh. And, you know, really, thank you once again for joining me on this. Thank you to DTG for having me on. I do appreciate it. Don't forget, if you do want to hop over and come and look at my channel, the details are just about to follow now. I'm Tintin_57, DTG ambassador, and a player of many, many different simulator games. It'd be really nice to see you over on my channel. You're all welcome. Thanks again for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it makes you make a decision. But also, I hope you get everything that you need in the summer sale. Take care, everybody. See you soon. Bye for now.
Right. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the West Somerset Showcase stream. It's a Monday afternoon, and I'm joined today by Joseph Rogers. Hello.
Hey everyone, hey Alex. Yeah, great to be here. Looking forward to this.
So we're here to showcase the Class 52 across, obviously, the West Somerset Railway route and a number of other layers. Now, the Class 52 is actually in the steam summer sail, and it's joined by a whole bunch of other British steam locomotives. British diesel locomotives, sorry. But also check the summer sale because we have so many things on offer, such as Train Sim World 3 Deluxe Edition on 70% off, same with Standard Edition, Birmingham Cross City 45% off, Cajon Pass 45% off. There's a huge range of offers. Go check it out. We've been saying it every day, but we'll be live every night to showcase a new route, a new sale route. So yeah, loads of stuff on offer, but let's dive into the West Somerset Rail. We have some fantastic knowledge coming from Joe here. You are expert for the night. You're local to the route, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'm a current volunteer on the West Somerset Railway, and I actually used to work for them as well.
Oh, fantastic. Right, well, let's get into it. We've got some gameplay to show. We've got about, I believe it's about 75 minutes of the route, so let's dive straight in. Let me switch.
Yeah, great. And it's first of all, I'm really excited to be on a stream. I've thought about this for a little while. I play the West Somerset Railway route all the time. It's the UK route that I play the most often. But yeah, it's a real privilege to work for Dovetail Games. I work in a wider team to Alex and the rest of the team in the marketing side of things. If you're a viewer and you read our regular Dovetail Live articles, I contribute to a fair few of those, mainly the ones where we launch a new product. We put all the Steam, the store links in and things like that. And if you sign up to our newsletters as well, I have some contributions onto the newsletter side of things as well. So yeah, that's who I am and what I do at Dovetail. But as I mentioned, I've got a big stake in the West Somerset Railway. It's a brilliant route in both the real world and in the game. So that's why we're playing it tonight.
Yeah, and if you saw me tab out for a minute there, it's just because I wanted to toggle my microphone on. It wasn't enabled on this scene, but we're all good. Right, reverser, set to forward. But yeah, so this route, I mean, I've given the intro a bit of a go, but to me, it's completely brand new. So I guess, Joe, I mean, like, sell me what you love so much about the West Somerset Rail,
Yeah.
and what it's like in real life.
Sure. So, I mean, for both yourself, Alex, and those that don't know, the West Somerset Railway is England's longest heritage railway. So, if you're new to heritage railways, so you may be a keen spotter on the main line. Heritage railways obviously are private railways often that preserve and restore both steam and diesel locomotives, depending on where they are in the country. You get them all over the world, both in America and Europe, but there's so many in the UK, and they're all fantastic, all different lengths, all representing different parts of the country, different time periods sometimes. And as I say, the West Somerset Railway is England's longest one, so it's over 20 miles long, which is very unusual for a heritage railway. There's a few others sort of in the tens of miles, like the Severn Valley Railway and the North York Moors Railway, but the West Somerset Railway is over 20 miles long. It goes from just outside Taunton, which is Somerset's county town, all the way through to where we're currently at now, at Minehead, which is where the sort of branch line terminates. So if you're into your steam and diesel locomotives and you want a real good stretch of line rather than just a kind of 3 or 5 mile run, as some of these heritage railways are, you get the opportunity to see like so much scenery, so much stuff. There's a lot of history behind the line that I'm sure we'll get into at a later point. But yeah, it's a really important heritage railway because of its length and because of what you see and do along the way when you visit.
I mean, I suppose preserving history and, like you said, like maintaining that history is really important, and that's why you've come along tonight to really give us that history insight. Now, one thing you wanted to bring up, and I might jump ahead to a question we had that we wanted to talk about here, is when I'm starting off, I'm going into the first throttle, and I'm realizing this loco is powerful. There's a lot of power behind the engine, and I thought you had something to tell me there about why this loco is so powerful. Do you want to go more into that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that were probably asking what's a massive, powerful Class 52 locomotive doing on a heritage railway where the maximum speed's 25 miles an hour. And I'm sure throughout the course of this run, Alex is going to have a massive challenge in trying to keep below 25 miles an hour with these two massive Maybach engines powering this loco. But the reason, of course, is that it's being preserved here. So it's actually currently not running because it's under a restoration period. There's actually a fundraising campaign to help restore it. But it would have originally been a much more powerful loco running express passenger services from London along the Great Western Railway. I believe they were built in Swindon at Swindon Works, and they worked all the way through down into Devon. So if any of you have been to Exeter St David's railway station on the main line, there's actually a little display in one of the waiting rooms where you can learn a little bit more about the history of these locomotives. And that was close with that red.
Oh gosh, you gotta keep me out. You gotta keep me looking out for these.
I think you were about 3 yards out before it changed to yellow. That was lucky.
All planned.
Yeah, all planned. Yeah, I'm sure. You're running to time. That's the important thing. Yeah. So as I say, these locomotives they were massively powerful, running along the Great Western Railway, but one's ended up on the West Somerset Railway because it's a preservation effort, and so that's why it's here. And as I say, it's currently being restored at the moment, so it hasn't run for a couple of years. But I know at the time that this route add-on is set, which is sort of 2017, 2018, it was definitely running. In fact, it was the star of the show at the Diesel Gala in 2018. And they're really popular locomotives. There's one at the Severn Valley Railway as well, which I know is at the Gala this year. And they've got a real place in the heart of, particularly the Western region rail fans, but also generally people that are just into big, massive, fast, powerful locos. They're really cool, I think. And one thing actually that's also interesting is they've come in some quite strange colours over the years. So this one's in the maroon, and you'll see elsewhere in the country there's a few preserved in kind of BR blue, but there was a couple in sort of a strange ochre, like golden colour, which was quite interesting. So yeah, they're really popular, and that's why we're running this one on this railway, because there is actually one here in real life.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant, and we've just finished our coupling challenge. If you saw the bump there, don't worry, all planned, all part of the run. It's usual for gameplay that I host that we hit things and it's not as smooth as it should be, but it's all good.
No, the Mark I carriages on the West Somerset Railway have purposely strongly built ends, just for those eventualities. But it's all good. It's all good. So we're on our way now.
We're on our way now. Let's. I was about to say we're on our way, but we're kind of at the speed limit.
Yeah. So what is it? 10 at the moment. 10 at the moment. Yeah, and then we'll go up to 25. So one thing that's quite interesting to point out. So that manoeuvre that you just did, I think you went across the crossing and you stopped at the signal, and then you came back and then you came into the platform to grab the coaches. Yeah. So in 2017, 2018, as I say, when this route was kind of set in game. That was very much the procedure. So in order to run out of the station and come back into the station, you had to cross the crossing. But a couple of years ago, they redid the crossing, and it had to be redone to mainline standards, even though it's only a heritage railway. And one of the logistical things that they decided to change was they tried to make it so that actually the locomotive didn't need to go all the way across the crossing to then come back into the platform to collect the coaches. And of course the advantage there was that it didn't have to keep stopping the road traffic every time a service wanted to run around or swap carriages or go from one platform to the other. So now with some services, actually they don't need to cross the level crossing, and that means the turnaround time is quicker at that end of the line. But again, it's slightly more convenient for the road traffic, particularly on a Friday afternoon when you've got all the people coming down to Butlins, which I'm sure you can probably see if you pan the camera in one direction. You'll probably see the big sort of tent building.
Oh yes,
there you go. Yeah,
so
that's Butlins Holiday Camp. Yeah, great little detail. Really glad they got that in there.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't notice that on my first run. We can actually turn the speed up a bit. Oh, that's wonderful. And it's got me thinking, like you said, that there's enough space there for the loco to turn around without having to cross the road. So it's surprising that you do have to, in this scenario, you actually have to cross over, stop the road traffic, and then basically just pull back in as if you weren't meant to be on this side anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for in the height of the summer when you've got tourists waiting at the level crossing, that it's quite an exciting thing for them to see, whether it's a steam loco or a diesel loco. See this kind of train popping in and out all the time. But operationally, there was obviously a bit of inefficiency there. So that's part of that refurbishment of that level crossing was was done so that they didn't have to do that anymore, which is great. Yeah, and just talking about the scenery for a moment with Butlins, a lot of the hills and everything around here, I know we covered this in a recent roadmap with some of the environment stuff that we do in game, but they're all as someone that's lived in this area, I can tell you that the topography is bang on. And if you look back towards Minehead, the hill above the town, that's North Hill. There's a campsite at the top of North Hill, and the hill behind it, Selworthy Beacon, and they're exactly as they are in real life. That view is, I can't describe to you how accurate that view is. It's amazing. And I first played this route before I joined Dovetail, and for me, I was just totally blown away by how accurate and realistic some of the environment was. And I can still say that now as a member of Dovetail, with a slightly more promotional tone, I suppose.
that's always it. You get that marketing edge now. What you described there, that's really what we're seeing from, just all of the routes we make when we make something that's local to one of our players, is that I know this, I can recognize this, and it's really cool to hear that you say that. It's I know that feeling is dead on. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, I know. People said similar things about Niddertal Barn when we released that, and the fact that it was a condensed route with crossing points, single track, and I know the speed limits are slightly higher, so you can kind of open the throttle a bit more in Niddertal Barn. But people said it was kind of almost like a German West Somerset railway, not in terms of it being a heritage railway because it's mainline, but in terms of the environment and the way it looks and the scenery and the kind of way you sort of whisk through the countryside. I'm not massively familiar with German railways, but obviously I play the routes, and Niddertal Barn's another great example of where the scenery really plays a part in the route as a whole, which is great.
Yeah, and the scenery is amazing, but actually, did you want to touch a little bit on what is essentially the difference between a heritage railway and just a mainline railway? For me, someone who doesn't really know as many of the terms as someone who's still relatively new to the world of trains, what is that difference?
Yeah, so obviously I spoke at, first of all, 5 mile an hour speed limit coming up, just going to point out. So again, this is all because of the level crossing and the visibility you get here. It's a really tricky spot for the driver to operate and not risk kind of having that visibility to see things. So anyone that's when I play it, it's you think, 5 miles an hour really, but there is a reason for that, and it's the same in real life. But yeah, going back to your question, so yeah, what is a heritage railway? It's a good question. We sometimes take it for granted, I think, that all railways seem the same or feel the same, but they all have different purposes. And as I mentioned at the start, heritage railway is very much with preservation and history in mind, whereas a mainline railway is with carrying passengers in mind. And actually, the West Somerset Railway, in the minds of some, is actually somewhere between the two, because there are people that do use the railway to get from A to B because it's so long. It's 20 miles long. Minehead is a really busy Somerset coastal town, as it has been since the Victorian era, and Watchet, which we'll come to later, is also quite a busy little harbour town. So there are people that use the railway recreationally to travel from A to B like they would on the main line. But as I said at the very start, a heritage railway is very much with heritage, preservation, teaching, education, making sure that people understand what the past was like. We do run steam trains on the main line, but we don't run them on the main line because we run them for what they are. We run them because of the history and the preservation, and it's the same with heritage railways. We just need to keep those things alive and keep teaching people about all the fantastic ways that railways operated in the past, and that's what a heritage railway is out there to do, really, at the end of the day.
And that's absolutely awesome to hear. Education is, as its whole sector as well, is vastly important. Making sure we remember where we've come from, essentially who we are, but also why these things are important, and making sure to teach people that.
Yeah, exactly. So we've just passed through Dunster Station. For those that have not played this scenario before, maybe you've not got the loco add-on. This is a kind of straight through run, if you like. We'll stop at 2 locations along the way because they're crossing points. Dunster's not one of them. It's a single platform station. But Dunster's quite interesting. So Dunster, it's not far from a big medieval village. Dunster Castle, big National Trust property. It's very popular with tourists. But there used to be a signal box at Dunster. And if you noticed as we were passing through there's no signal box there now. And that's because when the railway was being preserved, they realised that whilst having a signal box at Dunster was really cool, there was actually a greater need for a signal box at Minehead. And with the various cuts and things that had happened during the British Rail era, the signal box wasn't fit for purpose at Minehead. So what they did was they lifted the signal box at Dunster and put it on the back of a truck like a truck, as in like a railway, like with bogies on it. And then they got a little steam locomotive to actually haul the signal box from Dunster back to Minehead, and then they took it off. And the signal box that's at Minehead now, which you could see back when Alex was doing his shunting, that used to be the signal box at Dunster, and they moved it by train back in I think probably the early 70s. They moved the whole signal box, yeah. And there's photographs of this if you Google it and whatever. You can see the photos. It was an amazing thing, and moving buildings by rail is something that happens, and it happened on the West Somerset Railway when they were preserving it.
That is incredible. I can't believe just the thought process of like, yeah, we'll just pick the building up.
yeah, because dismantling it and kind of taking it bit by bit would have just been too time consuming. Things might have got damaged. I'm not a signalling expert, but I know you've got things like the ground frame and all the levers and things, and the way they interact with each other with the interlockings and things. Obviously, that would have had to have been adapted for its use at Minehead, but there's probably a lot of fragile stuff there, I imagine. So, to just pick the building up and move it. Why not?
I mean, lots of bubble wrap, I guess, for everything inside.
Yeah, right, yeah. And then, so this bit, this next section of track between Dunster and Blue Anchor, part of this is called Kerr Moor. And the West Somerset Railway run a fair few dining trains. And actually, that's something I was responsible for when I used to work for the railway, was making sure that the lovely passengers on our dining trains had a good time. So Kerr Moor, this area, sometimes the train would go really slow here. Not in this scenario, because we want to head on. We're in this big, powerful loco. But some of the more recreational, the slower services, they would really slow down here so that the diners could enjoy their meal whilst looking across the view out to sea. On a really good day, I think we've got a bit of haze at the moment, but on a really good day, you can see South Wales across Kerr Moor, which is fantastic. This area runs along part of the coast path, and as I say, for people to get that view whilst having their 3-course meal on these posh dining trains is quite a nice thing for people to do in their spare time. And then I think we're just rounding a curve here. Yeah, so the next station will be Blue Anchor. We're not stopping here, but it is the next crossing point. So if you've ever visited the West Somerset Railway for a gala, or you're planning to in the future, this is a great place to stay or to position yourself. Because you get some great photographs. You can see it's quite flat. You can see good stretches of track, so it's a great place to get you good zoom level photographs, and there's a lot of perfectly reasonable legal places you can do that from, public footpaths and things in some of these fields, which you can see on like the Ordnance Survey maps and things. But as a crossing point, it's actually a place where you can see lots of different locomotives at once. So in a gala, and I know a lot of the scenarios and timetable services in the game are based around the idea of a diesel gala, you can sort of stand at Blue Anchor and you might see a Class 52 Western on one platform, but you might see a Class 20 on the other, or a Class 33, and in game that will depend obviously on the different content that you have, but in reality, whatever guest locomotives are visiting that year, you'll see at Blue Anchor. And Blue Anchor, it's got a special place in my heart because I used to live at Blue Anchor. There was a hotel just along the coast from the station called the Blue Anchor Hotel, and I rented a room there for a little while whilst I worked for the railway, which was great fun. And you can imagine kind of seeing the sights and hearing the sounds of the railway every time you finished work and went home. That was really special. So yeah, Blue Anchor's my favourite station on the West Somerset Railway, and it's a lot of other people's as well because of the views and the excitement that you get there during railway events.
I'm struggling at the moment to control. I think we've just stopped.
That's okay. That's all good. So you want to take in that view. That's all it is. That lovely beach, the lovely sea. It's the summer. What's going on? So we've got the brakes on.
Are they still on? Oh my gosh.
I think so.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. I was wondering actually,
good.
just for a gameplay tip. So at the moment, usually in other locomotives, we're able to activate the brakes by going down on the D key on the throttle, and then it kind of comes into the brakes.
Right.
Are we actually in? The reverser's off. Why is the reverser off?
Oh no.
This is
We're
chaos.
rolling backwards.
This is chaos. Right. Let's...
Right. So anybody else that buys the add-on that's struggling with this, we have of course got a Class 52 driver's manual on the Dovetail Live website, which I'm sure Alex has read from front to back.
Yes. Yeah. I'm fully fluent in this route. If I'm honest, this stream, it's all about Joe's knowledge. The driving, I'm just getting us through the route. But I mean, Joe,
And you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. Honestly, it's all good. Yeah. So and actually, so while we're talking about the controls and stuff, one thing that's interesting. So I think the only other loco you get this with on the British routes is the Class 101, but we've got two bars with the throttle, the blue and the red. And normally, I think that's just it's just the amps of the diesel electric locomotives. So it's important to point out that the Class 52 is diesel hydraulic. It's not diesel electric, so it uses like a hydraulic transmission to transmit the power from both of the engines into the wheels. And the reason why there's two bars is because there are two engines. They're Maybach engines, I believe. And so that's why we've got the two bars there to represent the fact that there's sort of two power units, all at different revs. So it's RPM, like in a road car, rather than amps on the diesel electric locomotives, and so that's why there's that difference in the head-up display. And it's great that they've included that because I imagine there's a bit of a different dynamic to including that kind of thing. I'm sure when this route came out, Matt probably gave the lowdown on that. But yeah, so that's just to explain why the HUD looks slightly different. Is because we're dealing with revs per minute and diesel hydraulic rather than amps in diesel electric.
Oh, that's really interesting. And again, it just shows you like just the absolute difference that we've like included with this loco, but also just in general, just how different one loco is from another, and like the vast like minor changes they can have, especially with like the way they're designed in the engines.
Yeah, exactly. So whilst we're talking about engines and revs, this next stretch of track, so the gradient's saying 0.0% at the moment, so it's flat, going past this lovely caravan park where a number of West Somerset Railway volunteers have these. So they might live elsewhere in the country, and then they'll come down for the summer, stay in their caravan and volunteer for the railway for the summer, which is great way to spend your retirement if you're retired or lucky enough to do that. But beyond the caravan site, so you'll see the gradients, it's going up now, so we're at 0.2%. We're climbing, and that gradient's going to get steeper and steeper. And what sometimes happens, and I know we talked about this with the Rail Operations Group Class 37, I think, in one of the roadmap articles, is the drivers in a diesel gala, they'll go quite slow at this point, right? And then just as we get to the bottom of the incline, before it really goes uphill, they'll really open up the throttle to kind of accentuate the basically give them excuse just to open it up, because on a railway where the speed limit is 25 miles an hour, there isn't really much of an opportunity to open the throttle up like full blast kind of thing. So this will be the point at which they do that, and diesel garden enthusiasts, let's open it up, let's really go for it. And the enthusiasts love it because they love to see exactly what we're seeing, which is that clag coming out of the engine. Not very good for you if you breathe it in, but people like to experience that. They like to experience the noise and the sights and the smells, and that's part of what diesel galas are all about, really, because they're really a celebration of all these different diesel locomotives. And so this is Washford Bank. This is the Washford Bank, and the gradient is going to get steeper and steeper. I think it gets up to about 1.2, 1.5, maybe 1.8. Not sure, can't remember. It's one of the steepest parts of the railway, and as I say, during these diesel galas, it's the opportunity for the drivers to really let rip, kind of really go for it, which is great. And so the next station we'll be coming round to once we get through the incline is Washford, which is another station that we won't be stopping at. But that's why it's called the Washford Bank, because that station sits at the top. And then slightly further up here, I think, 1.4%. So it is fairly steep. There's a bridge that we go over just up here somewhere, and that's Black Monkey Bridge, and it's one of the oldest pieces of infrastructure on the railway, which is it's not a very well visited landmark. It's a bit off the beaten track. I think you have to walk about 2 or 3 miles through some fields and gullies and things to get there, but it is a really important piece of infrastructure. And it is in some ways a limiting piece of infrastructure as well, because in the past there have been things like weight limits and things that have limited what locomotives can come to the railway. But there's always, as there are on all heritage railways, ongoing work to preserve and restore the buildings as much as the locomotives, so that they can run the railway in the best way possible.
That's actually interesting. Just on that, it's like restoring the heritage railways isn't just restoring the railway itself or the locomotives on it. Maybe it's the actual views you get from the locomotives, the buildings that support the rail.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go through some stations later on where that's a really poignant point. Really, the look and the feel of the stations is as much for nostalgia as the locomotives and the carriages and the things that you're actually travelling on. But also on a practical side of things, and on a economical side of things, if you like, this is where the West Somerset Railways had some struggles in the past, because most heritage railways, or a lot of them, as I say, might only be 3 or 5 or 10 miles long, and the West Somerset Railway is over 20 miles long, and with that comes 20 miles of infrastructure, 20 miles of bridges, 20 miles of stations, of barbed wire fencing, of rails, of sleepers, of all the different things that have got to be maintained and repaired and restored. Each station's going to have a water bill, an electric bill, there's going to be insurance to pay, and all these are things that, you know, a lot of the general public might not appreciate a heritage railway has to combat against and sort out in order to survive. And as I say, it's easy for some heritage railways because they're smaller, they have less of this stuff. But for the West Somerset and some of the other larger heritage railways, it's a real challenge. One that I'm thankful to say the West Somerset are doing very well to combat at the moment, but in the past that's not always been the case. And we've always got to remember that there's a lot of voluntary efforts, there's a lot of fundraising that goes into preserving these railways. And the moment that appreciation gets diminished in some way is the time at which these railways struggle. So yeah, as I say, you know, Black Monkey Bridge, some of the stations, we've got to keep those up and running just as much as the locomotives and the carriages, because otherwise, you know, what good are the trains unless you've got a railway to run them on, right? Yeah. That's kind of how it is. But yeah, I think we're just coming to the top now, so we've reached the top. This bridge here that takes the road through to Blue Anchor. So if you're driving to Blue Anchor by road, you go over that bridge. Another good place to view from. There's a couple of refuges where you can get some nice photos from that bridge. And then so we're blasting straight through Washford, and Washford's so in game. Washford's quite interesting. I like Washford in game because there's switchable points from the main. I don't want to say the main line. That's probably the wrong thing to say, but the main, what we're currently travelling on. So you can actually switch those and go into the yard in a timetable service without really any kind of penalty and kind of, you know, mess about with some of the stuff that sometimes spawns there. We've got some carriages spawning there now. If you've got the BR Heavy Freight Pack and I think Tees Valley Line, you get some wagons and things spawning there with a little shunter, so you can do some stuff in there, which is cool. But yeah, so I quite like Washford. I like operationally in game, it allows you some flexibility to do some interesting stuff, which is great. But in real life, actually, not many people visit Washford. There's a pub, I think, next door to the station, which some people like to visit for a beverage of their choice. But yeah, the actual station, it used to be the home of a separate preservation society called the Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway Trust. They're now based elsewhere in Somerset. So there was a few bits and bobs in the yard there that they used to take care of. But yeah, still an interesting place. And as I say, in game, with those switchable points, it gives you an option to kind of have a mess around in there, which is quite cool. But this next stretch, you've got to keep an eye out. So the gradients change quite dramatically. We're going downhill now.
Yeah, I've noticed we're speeding up very easily here, so I'm keeping an eye on the brake and just kind of holding it back.
Yep, and there's going to be a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit come up, and it's very short, it's very temporary. And again, this comes back to when we were at Dunster. It's because of visibility of crossings. So there's a few crossings coming up, and they're not road crossings with like the level gates or anything. They're mainly farm crossings. So you might have like a farmer driving cattle across here, for example, or sheep, or a heavy tractor hauling something. So, you know, they're going across the crossing very slowly. The curves are quite tight, which means the visibility isn't very good. So in order to mitigate that risk of, you know, potentially hitting something on the crossing, the locomotive's got to slow down. And so that's why we've got this very small 10-mile-an-hour speed limit. And people that know the route and that have played it travelling in the opposite direction will know that actually that 10-mile-an-hour limit doesn't exist coming in the other direction. And the reason that is because the visibility coming the other way is much better. So there isn't the need to slow the train down for that reason. So yeah, and then, you know, once you've crossed the crossing, I think it goes back up to 20. But again, people that have played this route, they might not be familiar with the geography or the operational side. They might think, well, is that a bug? Like, should there be a 10-mile-an-hour limit coming the other way? The answer is no. It's all to do with visibility that's limited in one direction, but not in the other. And then we can get back up to 25. It sounds strange, doesn't it? Get back up to 25. 25's it's not that quick.
It's not that quick. Yeah, you think that's like the starting kind of speed from any other route.
Yeah. But you know, I think you know, I mentioned about the difference between heritage railways and mainline railways. It's important to kind of recognise that the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit so there was a highest. I understand. I don't actually know this as fact, but I tried to find this out before this stream. What the speed limit was during the British Rail days. I saw a forum somewhere suggesting it might have been as high as 55. Others suggesting that sections it might have been 40. But some railways, and I don't know whether this was the case with the West Somerset Railway, but they were built in the Victorian era with something called a light railway order, and it was basically a way for cheaply run railways to be built at short notice without having to go through Parliament and all the kind of paperwork and red tape that was associated with that. So they created this thing called the light railway order, which meant basically anyone who wanted to build a railway could build one. And with that came some restrictions in terms of like infrastructure in the way that the railway could run, because they were built cheaply. They could only run to 25 miles an hour, and so a lot of that precedent was set back then that sometimes is applied to the rules and regulations of today. And I believe up until I think it might be the 1990s, heritage railways were still running under a light railway order, which meant they couldn't go beyond 25 miles an hour. And that's still the case with the West Somerset Railway today, although a couple of other heritage railways have got permission to run slightly quicker for certain trains. Test trains and things, but that's just a bit of justification as to like, why is it 25 mile an hour, and it's prototypical, so these are the speed limits on the real route. It's not something that we've implemented from like a gameplay point of view just to annoy everybody. It's real. This is the real speed limit, and it is a challenge. It's like I think that's part of the appeal of this route, is it's prototypical, so this is exactly what the real drivers have got to put up with, but also it is a challenge, and particularly with the loco like the Class 52, because it's so powerful, you've really got to manage your throttle, manage your brakes, make sure it doesn't run away from you, as may have happened a couple of times with yourself, Alex, but we'll skip over that.
It's my first full run of the route, and it's a challenge. I'll admit, it catches you off guard. Like, we've got a 20 coming up now, and I'm probably not prepared enough for it.
Yeah, but that's cool. I think one thing that's really interesting to mention, we've with this diesel locomotive and with all the diesel locomotives in game, so the Class 33 and the 47 and the 09, they've all got speedos. They've all got speedos in the cab, right? And I know we've got the Jubilee class locomotive, the preserved one that River Games did. That's got a speedo in it as well. But the Spirit of Steam locomotives that are representative of the period, the late 50s and early 60s, they don't have speedos. So it's all about the feel for the driver. The driver's got to
really
know and remember and not count, but sort of acknowledge like how he feels this, because they don't have speedos. The old steam locomotives don't have them. And some of the steam locomotives that currently run on the West Somerset Railway, they don't have them either. So they're reliant
really
on
kind of essentially feeling the speed, like essentially guessing.
Yeah, and then as time moved on, steam locomotives did start to have speedos implemented in them, and obviously the diesels did as well. But today, obviously, heritage railways, they are slightly more controlled from a regulatory point of view these days than they might have been 20, 30 years ago. And so things like GPS have come in. The driver might have a GPS tracker that can live track the speed. And in fact, you can get apps on your phone now that obviously, again, there's control over use of a mobile phone on the footplate, but people on the footplate can potentially have things like a mobile phone, or someone in the guard maybe in the carriages can have a mobile phone and use one of those apps to give an estimate of the speed. Obviously, they're not massively accurate, but there's a whole thing over speed limits that's quite interesting. You could talk probably about that for an entire stream length, but we won't. So this is Watch It, and this is a really another good thing to point out. So Watch It is actually originally where the line ended. This used to be the end of the line. The stretch that we've just done from Minehead was the later part of the railway, built in 1874. The bit that we're now beginning to travel on, the older part of the railway, was originally built in 1862. And the reason why Watch It was the original end was because it was this harbour town, really important port of commerce for importing and exporting things like minerals and stone. I believe wine was imported to Watch It from France, and other things like that. It was also there was also a separate railway coming to Watch It called the West Somerset Mineral Line, which is a completely different railway, and not linked necessarily, other than its geography, to this railway. So this is where the line originally ended. You can see the little boats in the harbour there. That's typical of Watchet. It's a lovely town to visit on holiday. Some of this area has been redeveloped. Again, the in-game era is 2017, 2018. There's a bit of that's changed in the last couple of years. But yeah, so we're now we've kind of left Watchet and we're heading further south. This is the oldest stretch of the West Somerset Railway, the 1862, the original part.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
it was almost ironic that we're coming into a 10 mile an hour from a 20, and the town that happens in right next to it is called Watchet. It's almost like, watch out.
Yeah, watch out. Yeah, exactly.
You got 10 mile an hour coming up.
So I mean, in terms of some of the stuff that I currently do as a volunteer for the West Somerset Railway, one of the things that I get involved with is a couple of like PR things. So occasionally I'll do an interview on radio or I'll appear on TV. And I appeared on a TV program a couple of years ago. These like Escape to the Country style programs where people like move houses and stuff. And we came in to watch it, and they said, "Oh, can you say something like quite quirky about Watch It?" And I said, "Yeah, well, welcome to Watch It. You better watch it." And that it made it into the episode, so
Did it really?
I'd go back and watch that. And a bit cringy, but it was good fun. So now we're coming out of Watch It. As I say, we're travelling south. So the stretch of railway we've done was kind of like the coastal half, and we've got this view of the sea. This is the Bristol Channel, and the tide can go out really far, like as is represented there. But we're actually coming through now to the kind of more rural, more foresty, kind of countryside-y part of the route, as you go inland towards Bishop's Lydeard, which is where the service ends. And the next station, which again we're going to blast straight through, which is just coming up here, is called Doniford Halt. And this is the only request stop on the line. So if you want to get off here, you've got to walk up the train and tap the shoulder of the guard and say, "Oi, I want to get off here," and maybe do it slightly more politely than that. But yeah, he'll or she will then notify the crew, the cab crew, the footplate crew, and then the train will stop and you can get off. And equally, if you want to get on there, you've got to stick your arm out like you would for a buzz.
You got to properly wave them out.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a process. So the driver will whistle and say to say to kind of people on the platform, the train's coming. The people on the platform will stick their arm out to say, "We'd like to stop here." The driver will then whistle or horn again to say, "I've acknowledged that I've seen that you've stuck your arm out," and then the train will stop and they'll let people on. And there's a few request stops on different heritage railways. They're quite fun to go and tick off. Like it's the kind of thing like Jeff Marshall might do. Go around ticking off request stops and that kind of thing. And it is a good thing. It is quite a fun activity to go and sort of hunt them down. But it's also really intimidating. Like standing on a platform with your arm out and seeing a big train coming towards you. It's not like a buzz. It's big, it's powerful, it's a bit scary. But so that's a fun thing to do. And the station itself was actually built in the 1980s, so it's quite a recent addition, and it was built to accommodate the holiday park on the coast, so that people staying in their caravans could actually get on and off, or request to get on and off the trains and use the railway. Back in, I think, 1987, I think might have been when it was built. Again, I talked about Dunster signal box being recycled and moved to Minehead. All the stuff at Doniford Halt station was recycled from other stations across the country. So the little pagoda building that we saw from the platform is from near Exeter, I think, or near Tiverton, on a little branch line that no longer exists. And the platform came from Montacute, which is near Yeovil, again another station that doesn't exist. And they cobbled together all these bits and recycled them and rebuilt them so they're still being used. They're still preserved. They're still giving something to people that are travelling on this line. So here's your warning.
Up, right?
Yeah,
yep.
You got a yellow. Yeah.
Right. So we're gonna slow right down now. Let's get that.
We might be crossing something here. We might be crossing another service potentially. I don't know whether there's anything else in the other platform.
It's actually a red, so we want to stop just when we come up to that. So it's a good thing we slowed down anyway, because
absolutely
it's a 10 mile an hour limit. So let's make sure we're definitely in that. We don't want any red issues here, red light issues.
And so the way this will work is we'll pull up. I don't know how many coaches we are, but we'll pull up as close as we can to the signal, but obviously without running it. But we've got to clear this signal that we're currently going past, because if we don't clear that, then the other train can't go. So, which I'm sure we'll do. And if we pull up short, we'll just creep forward. And there's a few things knocking about here. There's that 47 in the siding there. We've got the 09 waiting to go. But yeah, let's all judge Alex's braking skills as he comes up to the red.
This is usually the one thing that I aim to get right. I want to get that stopping distance down to a T. And I mean, look at the time we've had. I want to say maybe 2.5 emergency stops.
Nah, see, it's all good.
We're only about a minute.
This looks good. So I think, yeah, we're good now. I think we've got enough of ourselves in the platform that the other train can go. We'll just have to wait a little bit for the signal to clear. All right, so we're actually, yeah, there we go. The other train's going, so we're all good. Excellent. We're in the right place.
They're able to cross. Look at that. We've even got our back doors open just in case.
Yeah. So I'm not going to embarrass myself by reciting one, but when I worked at Minehead Station, I used to do platform announcements. And one of the things we used to say was passengers travelling to Willetton or Doniford Halt should travel in the first 4 coaches of the train. This is due to short platforms. And as you can see at Willetton, we've got our back coach hanging off the back, and that's exactly the reason. The reason why we say 4 coaches is just to accommodate, if there's like mixed stock or anything, we're doing something a bit strange or pulling up short. But yeah, it's a short platform, so the guard would do a job there to make sure that nobody gets off that carriage and does something silly. They'll either keep the doors closed or just advise people if they're getting off to move into one further forward. But yeah, so Willetton, as I say, there's the 47 in the siding. We have the 09 here. This is where all the diesel locomotives are based. This is the home of the Diesel Electric Preservation Group. It's currently where this locomotive, the Class 52, is being restored. So if you're lucky enough to go and visit the shed there, and it is sometimes open, you can go and actually see it being worked on. And when we have visiting locomotives for galas and things, they tend to all base themselves here at Willetton. Yeah, that's where the diesel group are based. And we've got a green now, so we're all good.
Look at that.
I would say top marks there. Yeah, excellent. Good job.
Not too bad. All right, we're continuing on our journey then. So, I mean, I'm assuming obviously you worked on this heritage railway, like directly yourself. Like, is there a favourite bit of the route you have? Is there a bit that you pass through and you always think, oh, this is the bit,
Yeah, so I mentioned Blue Anchor Station earlier, and I think as a station, that's probably my favourite. It's difficult, the route's so great. Like I just think it's a really great heritage railway because it's so long. There's so many different things to see. But actually, this section that we're coming up to now. So again, we've got a bit of an incline here. We're going further into the Quantock Hills. So anyone that knows the geography of Somerset, Quantock Hills run through to the coast. Yeah, let's let it rip. Let's go. I quite like this stretch of the route. We sometimes. So I took a phone call once when I worked at the railway, and it was someone saying that they didn't enjoy this stretch because there were too many trees and it blocked their view. And that's a valid point, especially when you've travelled along the coast, and the views we had earlier of the beach and everything was glorious. And I suppose it's just a personal preference thing, right? But I actually really like this stretch, like the woodland and the forest. It's a bit more rural. You really get the impression that you're kind of off the beaten track. You're in Somerset, which is a very rural county. It's renowned for its things like cheddar cheese and the Glastonbury Festival, which wasn't that long ago. That all takes part in Somerset. It's all got a very rural vibe, right? And I really like this stretch because of all the kind of rural aspects of it. Stagumber, which is a station we're going to come through shortly, it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's one of those villages where you don't get mobile phone signal. I stayed there for a little while when I was kind of lodging around working for the railway, and it was a bit of a struggle because you'd kind of finish your shift and go back to where I was staying in Stagumber, and it was like, right, well, I've got to cut myself off from the outside world now. I can't text anyone or phone anyone. I can't stream anything. I can't, so I had to just go down the pub and have a meal, or chat to some locals, or go and sit in the countryside somewhere, go for a walk. And yeah, maybe that was good for me. Maybe that was a bit more healthier. But yeah, so I really like this stretch of the route. This stretch, I think, between Willetton, Stagumber, and Crocombe is probably my favourite stretch of the line. But Blue Anchor is probably my favourite station, if I'm being really honest. Yeah,
It's lovely.
and there was something else I was going to mention about Willetton. I can't remember what it was. It was broad gauge. Right, I'm sure there's people watching that know and love broad gauge. It's got like a real fan following. So this stretch of the railway from Watchet through to where we're going, Bishop's Lydeard, used to be broad gauge. So the rails used to be further apart. And it was something promoted by Kingdom Brunel with the Great Western Railway. He loved broad gauge, and then I think in 1890 something, they decided to change from broad gauge to standard gauge, which is what we're currently running on now. And they changed the gauge in a weekend, so they stopped services on a Saturday, they changed the gauge on a Sunday, and by Monday the trains were running again, which was an engineering feat in itself. But sorry, long-winded. The reason I explain this is because at Willetton, normally what happened with platforms is when the rails went from broad gauge to standard gauge, they would modify the stations in some way. Maybe they'd bring the platforms closer together. Maybe they'd rework the sidings, rework the points. But at Willetton, not much changed. So if you go and visit there in real life, and actually this is something also represented in game, the running rails are still, even though the rails of each line are now standard gauge, the distance between the two lines are still like quite far apart because of that representative kind of broad gauge distance. So there's a huge gap between the two trains, which is quite interesting. And again, as I say, broad gauge has got a massive following. There's a museum at Didcot, the Didcot Railway Centre. They've got like quite a lot on broad gauge and some archives and things you can go and read about, which is really interesting. We Are Rail Fans actually, I think, did an article all about broad gauge not that long ago, maybe last year or the year before. So again, there's a whole history of broad gauge that you could go on and on and on and on and on and on and talk about, but it's got real relevance here on the West Somerset Railway because that original stretch of the line was broad gauge and those rails were further apart.
As we're just coming across this bit, I think I'm really realizing that kind of rural area that you love so much about this route. And when you see the sunset, kind of the shadows being cast in the forest, like kind of farm patch of land, it really is beautiful.
Yeah, it's glorious. As I say, like I love it, and it's really important for the local area. There was a really bad snowstorm or snowdrift a couple of decades ago. This was when the railway was a heritage railway, so it was very much still preservation, run by volunteers as it is now. And the post office couldn't deliver post. And so for the first time in like 30 years, they ended up delivering post to Minehead by train because the railway decided to take the baton and say, right, well, we can run we can sweep the track, we can get the snow plows out, we think we can run a service and deliver some post to Minehead. So we'll deliver the post. Yeah, and again, like it's all part of that kind of local community rural feel. In other parts of the country, like the East Lancs Railways in a really built up part of Bury, near Manchester, and so you think, well, there's much more infrastructure there. If something really bad happened like that, there'd probably be other ways of getting around it. But in rural Somerset, there's only so much you can do when there's a bad snowdrift or there's flooding or something. We're very fortunate in that the railway isn't affected by flooding too much. We did have a little landslip, I think, earlier this year, but that was inland rather than on the coast. But yeah, so like that, the rural aspect of this railway and the way that the locals interact with the railway and how important it is for all the different little villages along the way, the holiday cottages, the caravan parks, the restaurants, the pubs, the hotels. The railway forms part of really the local economy. But like what you just said, with the sunset and the rolling hills and the trees, all, and I know I talked about this at length earlier, but all represented really well in the game. It really like adds to that rural thing, that rural feel. It's beautiful. I think you can say it's beautiful.
It really is. So where are we up to? We're 7 miles away from Bishop's. How am I reading this? Lydeard? Is that correct?
Yeah. So again, working on the railway, this was always something that cropped up in phone calls. It's Bishop's Lydeard. Although I believe I've been corrected on it a couple of times because I think locals. It's definitely not Lydeard.
It's definitely not what I said.
it's definitely not what Alex said. But it's Bishop's. I think Bishop's Lydeard or Bishop's. There's Lydyard or Lydyard. I think there's a bit of debate there, and I think I've always said Bishop's Lydeard, but I can't remember whether that's the right way to say it or not. But anyway, yeah, I'd say it's Bishop's Lydeard, and if you want to pronounce it differently, then go ahead. I don't think anyone's going to come chasing after you.
But yeah, we've still got 6.7 miles. So while we got some time, let's do a bit of diving into something a bit different. Instead of Joe being our host talking about the West Somerset and all the wonderful facts for the moment, tell us a little bit about you in general. Have you ever driven a loco? I know you've written that down. Is there a story there?
Yeah, so I was very lucky. So I've driven a full scale loco twice, both steam locomotives, both for very short periods of time. So the first one was actually on the East Somerset Railway. So there's another railway in Somerset. In real life, sort of on the opposite end near the Mendips, and they did these, like, they called them driver for a fiver days, but you don't pay a fiver these days. You pay like maybe £20 or £30, and they did one of these events where you could drive this little shunter called Lady Nan up and down the sidings. So that was my first taste of like a full scale locomotive, giving that a go, and it was really good fun. The driver, who was also the owner of the locomotive, was really friendly, really sort of accepting in you making mistakes as long as it was safe, and he guided you through, don't touch this, it's too hot, you can open it up a bit here, you can break a bit here. It was a really great experience. And then not too long after that, actually, I was given the opportunity to have a little go on the West Somerset Railway at Bishop's Lydeard, at the end of, so it wasn't obviously a public train, there's no one, not hauling any carriages or anything, but just a light locomotive move again in the yard, just to get a bit of a taste for it. And it was super exciting, but it was also so scary, really, really intimidating. You've got so much power behind you. It's such a big vehicle. If you drive a car, sometimes driving a car can be scary enough, right? But if you're driving a locomotive, that's really scary. What I'd love to do is I'd love to have a go, not even just to drive. I'd love to have a cab ride in a diesel. I think that would be amazing. I've not had a chance to do that yet, but so I have had a go a couple of times, and it's real privilege, real rare opportunity, something I never would take for granted. There are opportunities out there for the paying public to do this. It's not cheap sometimes, unless you win it in a competition or something. And again, there are opportunities like that to do that with Heritage Railways sometimes when they want to drum up a bit of publicity. But I would strongly encourage anyone who's in a position where they're able to consider that, go for it, because you'll never forget it. You'll remember it for the rest of your life. And something else that was quite important for me was there's a family connection. My great-grandfather was a steam locomotive driver. Never met him, unfortunately. He drove on the LMS railway, which is represented in Peak Forest, which came out recently. So those kind of freight services are the kind of thing he'd have been operating in the West Midlands, rather than Derbyshire. But so it was quite important. It was a real, quite an emotional moment. I think you can say that safely. And yeah, something I would absolutely do again if I got the opportunity.
I mean, like you say, when you're saying about, like, you can really feel the power when you're in it and it's intimidating, how much of that do you think is the sound as well? Because obviously we're driving something, the Class 52 here is loud. Like you said, the twin engines, it's a very noisy locomotive. It feels powerful. It is powerful. Is that really kind of what adds to that feeling?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you move something in the cab, and you feel the movement, but you hear the noise that it's making. I've never driven like a high performance sports car. I know some people, you can do track days and things. With Ferraris and what have you. I've never done that, but I can imagine it's the same kind of feeling. When you put the throttle down, you hear this like roar of the engine. The noise is absolutely part of it. With a steam locomotive, it's the deep, it's a rumble. It's with diesels particularly, but even with steam locos, that sound of the boiler and the pressure, the fact that there's like so much power contained in a vessel. It's it's a real experience. So yeah, the sound definitely has an impact on the way you react to it. And I'm sure you get used to it over time, but as a one-off opportunity, it's a bit scary.
Yeah, but I mean, like you say, it's an experience that you would absolutely do again.
Yeah, and I think those opportunities are really rare. They come about very infrequently, and for some people that are in a position to do so, they come about more frequently because they've got the ability to pay for them. They you can do driver experience courses and things. And again, I don't want to sound too like self-promotional here, because I do think what we do is really great. But with like Trains and World, the ability to drive these things, and I thought this long before I joined Dovetail, it's such an important thing to give people a taste for what it's like to actually operate these things. And I think for new players as they come in, which welcome if you're joining and you've not experienced a Train Sim World live stream before, I just think it's a real great thing to be able to give people a taste of what it's like, and to give people a taste of what these railways are like as well. There's probably people that play the West Somerset Railway route that have never travelled on the West Somerset Railway. I played Glossop Line recently. I've never been to Glossop. That was our most recent route, but it gives you the experience to go and explore these places and drive an EMU. I'll never get to drive an EMU unless I sign up and become an employee for a mainline railway. So, yeah, I think, as I say, I think we probably talk about this a lot in a lot of the stuff we do, but I just think it's a great thing to plug sometimes and remind ourselves that what we do is great.
Oh, I like that. I love that. Right. Okay. History buff. Your thing. Give us a rundown. Where are we up to? What's coming up next? What's so fascinating?
So I don't think we've got to Crocombe Heathfield yet. I think that's what we're coming up to next. You're tying that question perfectly, Alex, because Crocombe Heathfield is arguably one of the most important stations on the railway from a historical point of view. The Beatles have been here, right? Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, they've been to Crocombe Heathfield. Back in the 60s, they filmed a film called A Hard Day's Night, like a musical film. And they caught a special train from London through to Minehead, so where we started off today. And on the way, they stopped at Crocombe Heathfield to do this filming. And if anyone's seen the film, you'll know there's a really famous scene where Ringo Starr gets out the train and he cycles along the platform on a bike, which obviously is a big no-no in today's modern day and age. But he was given permission to do that whilst the train was running alongside the platform. And here we go, this is it, this is Crocombe Heathfield Station. So he was on as we're looking at it, the platform on the right. I don't know whether that's platform 1 or 2, I can't remember. But the platform on the right, he cycled along in this film. And he's like waving and ringing the bell and whatever. So they did all their filming of that particular scene here. And on the train, they did a lot of filming on the train in like the compartments, the old carriages. And then they went all the way through down to Minehead, and the police had to get involved at Minehead because the crowds to see them on this train was so big that they had to manage all the screaming people that wanted autographs and all that kind of thing. So we try and encourage this on the railway because the Beatles is obviously a big tourist draw. And you can see it's beautiful, that again, this is like another rural, in the middle of nowhere station. The Beatles. The Beatles have been to Crocombe Heathfield. If you've been there, you can say you've been to the same place as the Beatles, which I just think's a really cool thing to say.
I love facts like that. I love finding out an area that might be local to you or somewhere that you've been before. It's got that kind of piece in history, in fame. Wow, yeah. I mean, yeah, you can imagine a crowd at Minefield because it's not a huge platform by any means. It's not a huge area.
No, exactly. And sort of away from the showbiz side of things, Crocombe Heathfield, it was the highest point of the railway as well. So I'm sure people were probably paying more attention than me, but you'd have seen the gradient going up and up and up and up, and we came through the platform and it flattened out. And now, as you can see, 1.2%, we're going downhill. So we've crested, the kind of the peak, the top, the highest point of the railway. In fact, I think maybe when we released the route, I know in a Dovetail Live article, I think there might have been a gradient profile, or in fact, there's probably one in game. I think you can look at gradient profiles in game, can't you? Or we've featured them certainly in road maps and things before when we've done a bit of a deep dive into certain routes. And if you were to look at the West Somerset Railway's gradient profile, there'd just be this big peak with Crocombe Heathfield because that's the highest point of the line. So so now we're dropping all the way down. It's downhill all the way from here. It flattens out at a couple of bits, so you have to be a little bit careful on the brakes. Sometimes you can go a bit hard and you end up slowing down too much. But it's all downhill now towards Bishop's Lydeard.
Yeah, we're just cruising down. We're just coming with the kind of initial application on our rate. We're just kind of coming down this hill, hopefully a bit gradually. I'm trying to manage it well, but yeah.
Yeah, no, doing a good job. And I think this is where you can be, there's two different. I think this is a really interesting discussion actually. I don't know whether this is the kind of thing that gets talked about on live streams often, but gameplay styles. How people play differently. So people will say, well, there's only one way to drive this loco, and that's the way that people drive it in real life. And that's true to a certain extent, because you don't want to be messing things around and, kind of taking for granted the level of detail that goes into making sure that the controls operate the right way. But when you're coming like downhill, I remember when, again, before I joined Dovetail and I played this route for the first time, I didn't know the difference between a driver's brake and the loco brake. Right? I know the difference now, right? So don't have me for that. But I didn't at the time, right? I was a bit naive, and I used to use both to try and get the brake level the right amount so that I didn't have to do anything going downhill. I could just let it go. And like, I'm sure there's people like watching this that are thinking, oh wow, like that's just the worst thing to do ever. You're going to damage the brakes, or someone's going to get in trouble or whatever. But for me, it made me enjoy the route more, because it meant I could it gave me a period during that run where I could actually just take in the scenery a bit more, maybe focus on what some of the other controls do. Have I got the headlights set up correctly? Oh, is it raining? Have I put the rain on? Can I do something with the windscreen wipers? What do the dials do? That one's the speedo. I didn't notice that before. Maybe next time I'll do it without the HUD. You can afford to like look at those things and concentrate a little bit more on those controls, and then of course you're learning more, and it gives you the opportunity to play it slightly differently next time. So I think it's really interesting when you've got these downhill gradients, and equally when you're like going uphill as well and trying to find the right throttle balance. I don't worry sometimes about making sure I do things prototypically and correctly. I'd sometimes just worry about enjoying myself. Although having said that, these days now I do know what the difference is between the drivers and the locos brake. I do try and make sure I use them properly.
Then you've grown that appreciation because you've kind of become better. Your knowledge has increased. Right, you've learned more about the game by playing it the way you want, but then by making sure you enjoy it first, and then really diving into that enjoyment with proper understanding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few other. I think there's a few great other opportunities to do that in Train Sim World with on Southeastern High Speed, the Class 465. There's the rheostatic brakes, the regenerative braking system, which is an option. You don't have to use it, but once you get to the stage where you've run that route quite often and you learned it, and you can kind of maybe look around the cab a bit more and decide what's going on. You can look at that and maybe I'll turn that on next time, and you get you get the little noises that come as a result of that, or the slow speed controls. I think the Class 465 has slow speed controls. There's a few other locos that have slow speed controls on some of the British freight routes. I think Tees Valley maybe there's a loco with a slow speed control. And again, some of the tutorials and the scenarios teach you how to use these things, but sometimes it's nice to use them like in action, to use them as part of your run on your route, maybe in Scenario Planner where you're doing something a bit different to what the timetable's asking of you.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I think that's an area like that, I think it's a really interesting area to talk about and to hear from the players, like how they play differently, whether they're playing prototypically and accurately, or whether they're just having a good time. I think there's equal arguments for both.
Definitely. I think there is a large area of discussion you can have there. I know when we come to like influencers who play the game and people that are new to the game, like we recently went on Game Pass. We're still on Game Pass, and when players come in that haven't played the game before, and they might not be rail fans at all, they might just be, hey, this is on Game Pass, let's dive in, let's give it a go. That discovery usually means they're just going to throw the speed all the way up, they're going to enjoy the route, they're going to try things and do things wrong or do things differently. But there is a big discussion, I think, that's really nice to understand, that not everyone will get it right, not everyone needs to get it right to enjoy what we're giving them, but obviously we've designed a game, we've designed Train Sim World in a way that really complements it when you do know it. So even those players that come in and they might not understand it, they might just ignore the speed limits, they might just send it all the way, the game eventually, if they stick with it, will complement them better when they do things right, when they do things correct, when they do things prototypically. And so that you're right, that gradual playing, that gradual enjoyment will eventually lead into real knowledge of how things work.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, and on that note, can we talk a bit about Scenario Planner? Because I like Scenario Planner. I'm a real fan of Scenario Planner. So I think it's really one thing I think is great about this route as a heritage railway. Talking about like being prototypical and doing things like that may have been reenacted in real life, it gives you so much more flexibility, because in real life, pretty much anything can run on a heritage railway. Anything that isn't electric can run on a heritage railway, right? So, it might be a southern region locomotive, or it might be, something from up north, or something that's never run on the West Somerset Railway back in like the British Rail days, but it might turn up for a gala, it might turn up for a freight service or something, or a rail tour. And so Scenario Planner gives you the great opportunity to actually like drive so many different locos on this route, in a way that's actually like, in some ways prototypical, or in other ways just a bit of fun. And I'll give a couple of examples. So we talked a little bit about some of the other content that layers onto the West Somerset Railway, the Class 33, Tees Valley Line, Northern Transpennine. All these have British diesel locomotives, and they all layer, they substitute in and out the timetable, because of like trying to recreate that like diesel gala thing. But there are a few that don't, and the ones that don't, you can have some real fun in Scenario Planner with. So with Midland Main Line, for example, there's the East Midlands trains Class 158, and you might say, well, East Midlands trains Class 158, it's never run on the West Somerset Railway. Why would I want to run that train on Scenario Planner on this line? But a South Western Railway Class 158 in almost exactly the same livery, just the letters spelt, east instead of southwest, has run on this line and gone all the way to the end. And so, it gives you the opportunity to run the Class 158 on a route that's like really quite unusual and a bit different, and you get to experience all that environment and the scenery. Class 66s haul freight occasionally from Norton Fitzwarren through to Bishop's Lydeard on ballast train services, and they've run stone trains in the past as well, Mendip stone trains. So if you want to run a Class 66 on this line, you can. There's no layer for it, but get Scenario Planner out, plot it in, and away you go. The same with Class 37 freight, the same with steam locomotives, the Spirit of Steam, AF, 4F, the Jubilee. They've all visited at one stage or another for steam galas and things. So if there's one thing I'd encourage anyone to do, if you've got this route and you've got other British content, get Scenario Planner out, see how the route is different from all the different locomotives. I'd like to claim maybe that I've driven everything that you possibly could drive on the West Somerset Railway, and it's great fun. It's great fun because it's a different experience every time, and you get to get more value out of this, more playing value out of some of the content that you're buying, which I just think's brilliant. So that was my little piece on Scenario Planner. I think yeah, and people share what they do. There's Diesel Gala scenarios in Creators Club that people have created, rail tours and stuff, which are great. I've downloaded a few. They're good. They're real quality, and that's part of what makes that feature really, really enjoyable. And I just think this route lends itself so well to that, because it's a heritage railway, and anything can happen on a heritage railway.
Anything like running a red light, we're okay. we're inching our way towards that perfect stop.
The moment of silence, the concentration.
All right, I'm gonna call it at 20 yards. Oh wait, no, we want the brake, not the release.
Oh, you got it. 11 yards. I like it. Excellent. So just a quick bit on Bishop's Lydeard. This is the end of the line for us, but actually for a lot of people it's the start of the line, like the people on that train, which I think was Class 33 hauled. It's like close to the motorway. It's close to a big town, Taunton. It's got a big free car park that people can come and park at and spend all day at, and not have to worry about charges or anything like that. So a lot of people turn up here and then they get the train in the opposite direction and go all the way to Minehead. So there isn't actually too much at Bishop's Lydeard. There's a museum with a model railway in it, but it's the starting point for most passengers and most people. And it just so happens that for us, it's the
final
end.
stop. And look at that, with a bit of moderate speeding, we've caught back up. We're on time.
Yeah, I think you've done a great job there. I think we can sign you up as a volunteer.
Oh God! Oh no!
Oh no!
We're rolling away.
I take it back. I'm deleting the email giving you a volunteer form right now.
We can sign you up right as the train's rolling. Right, in that case, then that's what we're really going to showcase for the West Somerset Rail. But what I will say is, well, let's first let our passengers load. That's a win. We made it. And I'm gonna press escape here and switch back to our source. And there we have it. Joe, you have been absolutely incredible So you've shared knowledge on the route, knowledge on a bit of yourself. We've had some fun discussions, a little bit about why playing Scenario Planner can be so fun and transformative for this route, but also why players can enjoy the game the way they like in different ways, and that can actually help teach them the game the way it's meant to be played prototypically. But Joe, you've been amazing. Where can we find you? What do you write our incredible articles and newsletters as well, but what else do you do, and where can we find you?
Yeah, so I mean, I do stuff for the West Somerset Railway still as a volunteer. If anyone's visiting, they happen to be there at a special event, and you spot me, come and say hi. But yeah, keep an eye on the newsletters, keep an eye on the articles, and just next time, keep in mind it might be me behind one of them. So I've really enjoyed this. I really hope that some of the stuff I've talked about the railway and also about the game, which we all love, so dearly, has been really worth it, and people have got something out of it. Look forward to seeing the feedback.
And thank you all for joining us. Remember, this is part of the 2-week Steam Summer Sale special that we've been promoting. So the Class 52 is on sale. If you like this route, go ahead and try it out. But we have so much other stuff on sale. Almost all of the TSW3 content, or content released from TSW3, might I add, is on massive discounts. Like TSW3 Deluxe is 70% off, Birmingham Cross City 45% off. I'll leave the rest to you. Discover the sales. There's so much on offer. But if you want to discover the sales proactively, we have streams all through this week and next week, streaming some of the routes that are on sale from our ambassadors and from us at Dovetail. Right, that's enough marketing for one night. It's been fantastic. If you want to catch the schedule, check it out on our forums. We have a whole RFTV streaming schedule for the week there as well. But that'll do it for us on West Somerset Rail, and that's the closing stream for the night as well. So thank you, Joe. You've been fantastic, and with that, good night. Bye-bye.
See you, folks.